Hey, everybody. I am super excited to have you guys here on the Master Passive Income Show. And today we're going to be looking at a great program called Stessa. Now, for us real estate investors, we invest in rental properties. We buy up to fourplexes, single family homes, duplexes, all that good stuff to make passive income. But we need to make sure, not just managing, that's one thing, but we also need to account for that. And today I'm super excited to bring on Devin Redmond from Stessa to show us exactly how to use Stessa and walk us through everything. So Devin, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and what's your position there at Stessa and basically what you do.
Yeah. So I run customer success for Stessa. So that involves all of our, our support team and the people that are on the front lines, helping everyone get as much as possible out of the product. And then it's also, there's a design aspect. I spend a lot of time sitting down talking with rental property owners around the country, figuring out, what are their biggest pain points and how can our program make sure we're building the right features in the right way to help them get where they need to be.
I love it. Now, walk us through, what is Stessa? I mean, give us like a elevator pitch of what Stessa does, because some people even ask me, well, is Stessa, should I actually get Stessa? Because I have a property manager, I have a property management company, or I manage the properties myself and I have a property management software. Because all the students that I work with, there's different options and I want them to have plenty of options. But give us like a brief synopsis of what Stessa does.
Right. Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of options. So Stessa is a little bit unique in that we focus on tracking income and expenses and helping investors understand how they're doing. So we found early on that a lot of investors, they know how they're doing once a year when they file their taxes, right? When they reach out to their CPA, they get their bookkeeper together.
That's totally me. Honestly, it's totally me.
Right? It's hard to know month to month, how am I actually doing? There's a lot of different input and data streams coming in, and it takes a lot of time, or can take a lot of time, to bring it all together and see how you're doing. So our number one goal is to help you understand how you're doing every month with as little hassle and stress as possible. So, when I'm explaining it, it often helps to think about other products that do some of the things we do, like Mint and Personal Capital are really good on the personal budgeting side, where you connect in your bank accounts. You can sometimes pull like home valuations. So Stessa does all of that, but very specifically purpose-built for real estate, for rental property owners. So that's the niche that we try to sit in. So that when you've got a portfolio of anywhere from, we've got people on the platform with 50 properties. And while they may have a bookkeeper at that point, we really try to help investors grow without having to bring on a bunch of other people. So our software does a lot of that automated bookkeeping for you that helps you keep costs down. And especially when you're a new investor, you kind of want to be in there looking at the numbers yourself. And so it's also a great way to learn the business as you go.
That's great. Now, I literally just use an Excel sheet, probably because it's just simple and easy. Even though I'm not a big Excel person, it's just the easiest thing for me to do. And so I'm super excited to have you walk me through this, because more than likely I'm going to jump over to that, because having these automated and be able to use something that is going to help me see the numbers better is going to be so much better. So walk us through. So I know you have some slides that you want to take us through. So go ahead and start going with that.
We'll spend a few minutes talking about the company and sort of how we're doing what we're doing, and then we'll jump over to a live demo. So yeah, obviously, as we talked about, Stessa helps rental property owners maximize their net cash flow, their profits, so that you can really appreciate your bottom line. So yeah, we're a true startup. We're based in San Francisco. We have a distributed engineering team, software engineers in California, in Europe. We've been doing this remote work thing for a while, even before the pandemic, a lot of us, because we're distributed around the world. So we've actually rolled with that really well. I've been proud of the team. We've released some great new features this summer, even while things were pretty challenging. So we operate like a startup, even though we are part of a larger company. We were acquired by Jones Lang LaSalle a couple of years ago. But we're in their tech startup portfolio, and they more or less leave us alone to do our thing, which is great. We're a cloud-based platform, and we have both an Android and iOS app already. In terms of the market, these are some of the things that got us excited early on. 75% of rental property owners in the US are individual real estate investors. So that's a lot of people doing things on their own, trying to figure out their way around the business. And so we saw that as a great opportunity to help them with a very tailored product that no one else was really doing. And then, 10%, only a small minority of investors are confident how their rental portfolios are performing outside of tax time. So, we touched on that already. And it's something I hear every day from people that, I have no idea what my cash on cash return is. I don't know what my return on equity is. How do I even do the math when I have a couple of variables in there that I don't know what the numbers are, and it's tricky. So we try to automate a lot of that. I have my own on the personal portfolio. I've got 5 units over in Hawaii. So I'm actually living this stuff every day as well, which is very helpful to me when I'm talking to investors. So some of the frustrations we had, ourselves in the early days, we were just spending too much time dealing with paperwork, trying to keep things organized between our filing cabinets, between Dropbox. It gets pretty messy pretty fast. For example, I just did a refinancing on one of my properties in Hawaii, and it was an hour of signing, right? And there were probably 50 documents in there. So where do those all go? What if you have to look one up? That's part of this time and stress issue that a lot of us were experiencing, and we decided there had to be a better way to tackle it. Paper trail with receipts, trying to keep good records for our CPA in case there's an audit in any future year. Shoe boxes only get you so far. So we actually have a great receipt scanning feature as well. And then, this issue about how am I doing? When you're wanting to grow your portfolio, if you don't know how the properties you already own are performing, you can get yourself into trouble with your next acquisitions, right? So you want to make sure you're learning the right lessons, and a lot of those lessons are based on the math and how you're actually performing. And so going into that next acquisition eyes wide open, I think is really important. So it's one of the things we try to do is give investors confidence in how they're actually doing. And it's not always great news. Sometimes it's bad news, but having accurate news is important, and so that you can feel confident that you're making progress. All the existing solutions were not quite right for rental property owners. Obviously, QuickBooks super powerful. If you've got a huge portfolio, a bunch of partners, if you're tracking, capital contributions and draws, and you've got complicated waterfall structures, QuickBooks can be a great choice, right? But it takes a lot of time to set up, and a lot of, especially starting investors, they just don't have the knowledge to set up all their categories and their classes and figure out how to do all that. Google Sheets, Dustin, you mentioned you use Excel sheets. Google's kind of the free version. It's easy, but we found that it's never up to date. So most investors don't have a good routine of going in there week after week, month after month, and keeping it current. And then there's also just a lot of manual data entry that's required to do it the right way. Mint and Personal Capital, they've got great business models for what they're doing, more around personal budgeting. When you try to get your real estate portfolio up and running on one of those platforms, it's very, very obvious that it's not built for that. So that's challenging. CPAs are great. If you can afford one and your portfolio is big enough to have somebody do a lot of this for you, but you typically need a bookkeeper too. And so I like to work with my CPA on more strategic issues a couple times a year, and then have them, kind of crank out the taxes at the 10-yard line. And they're just expensive to hire them to do regular bookkeeping. So I try to stay away from that. And then Cozy's awesome for, things like rent collection. It's more of a point solution. I know a lot of investors use that to get the late fees in there and to make everything work on the rent collection side. That's something Stessa doesn't do at the moment. We may go there in the future, but anyone who's tried to use their expense sort of tracking side, it's not their sweet spot.
It's pretty limited, yeah.
Yeah. So this is why we kind of see an opportunity for what we're doing. Yeah, in terms of the actual, cloud-based software product, we're bringing together performance metrics, reporting, everything financial, and the paper trail that comes with investing. And the idea is that it's all in one place. You've got a single source of truth that you can go to at any time to look up a tenant phone number, or look up some obscure lease or mortgage term when an issue comes up, right? And then, we also allow you to sync your bank and mortgage accounts so that it's as seamless as possible. All that data comes in, and you have a little massaging you need to do and clean up from time to time. But you're not creating every transaction from scratch. So that's kind of what we call the magic, is when things are connected and flowing in, and there's work happening in the product automatically while you're sleeping, right? Or out trying to buy another property, whatever it is. So in terms of the core services, obviously tracking income and expenses is a big part of it. That's kind of the heart of Stessa. That includes everything from rent payments, all your expenses, mortgage payments, CapEx. You can even track useful life and date placed in service. Some of those things that your CPA will want for depreciation. And then mortgage balances are generally updated automatically as you make principal payments each month, based on the information that those lenders are sending us through the system. In terms of managing the details is also really important, so that you've got a place you can go to look things up. Leases and tenants, there's a full rent roll feature where you can put in all your expiration dates. You can get automated emails and alerts in advance of those expirations. So when you have one property, it's not that big of a deal. You can keep track of it, but as things grow, it gets a lot harder. There's also document storage, and then reporting is a big deal too. So we just launched a new reporting feature this summer, and this does a really nice job of giving you pretty sophisticated financial reporting that is custom built for real estate. So it's not a P&L from like a generic accounting program. It actually, the net cash flow report below your net cash flow line, it tells you your debt service coverage ratio. So there's some nice real estate specific things that are kind of worked in there that make it feel like a really native real estate program. You can also get a schedule of CapEx really easy. The stress test model is another one we built this summer that helps you assess, okay, how would my cash balances look and where would my portfolio be if suddenly I was only collecting 70% of rents or 60% of rents. So with the pandemic going on and the eviction moratorium, this has been a good tool for investors to kind of look into the crystal ball a little bit and imagine, okay, where am I at risk? What's kind of my break even? Where do I get into trouble? Oh yeah, and then it's free. So we're a free platform. We make our money through, there's a few optional premium services like rent estimates. So when you've got a vacancy and you need some market guidance, we've got a tool that helps you do that. That we charge for one-off. And then we also do referrals for mortgage refinancings and things like insurance. We have good partners lined up who are very focused on rental properties specifically. And that's how we make our money. We do plan to have some other advanced features in the future that will have paid tiers associated with them. So in terms of what you get from onboarding a property in Stessa, automated bookkeeping, which we've talked about, great financial reports that are up to date and accurate, as long as you're keeping up with all the transactions coming in from your banks. Easier tax prep. We've got a great email package that you can send out to your CPA and gives them all the links they need to dig in and see what's going on. Just staying organized and feeling like confident that you're keeping up with things. You can go use our mobile apps, Android and iOS now, for, you can tackle tasks when you're out and about, categorizing transactions. You can look anything up that you want. We've got some great collaboration features, so you can invite spouses, partners to your account. And we do that on a portfolio basis. So if you've got different partners and different deals, you can actually just bring them in for an account view that only shows them what's relevant to them. So that's kind of a nice feature. And we've got people who've got 10 to 20 different partners across 10 portfolios of assets. And it keeps it all separate. And then, we've got bank grade security. So everything's locked up and safe in the cloud. And generally, we found that people who are logging in every couple weeks at least, if not a little more often, over time become savvier investors because they're familiar with their numbers. They know how to recognize opportunities to reduce operating expenses. They're on top of their lease expirations. They're talking to tenants early so they don't get surprised. All those sorts of things. They're smaller operational details, but they add up over time. And regardless of whether you have a property manager doing things on site, a lot of times, even if you do, you're maybe paying your taxes directly or your insurance. And there's that other layer on top. And so Stessa can also bring in data from property managers, and then you layer yours on top and you've got a full kind of asset view. Yeah, and so I talk with investors every day. It's been fun over the last couple of years since I started. When I started, we got a lot of, hey, you guys are onto something. This would be really great. And then we'd get a list of like, here's the 14 things that I want you guys to build, right? These are the things that are causing me trouble that I want help with. And as we've sort of, worked our way down that list over time, it's been fun to see the comments change and say, hey, this is really working for me now in a more comprehensive way. So, Gwen specifically in the middle here, she's got a portfolio of 10 to 15 assets, North Carolina and the Midwest, and she does short-term and long-term rentals. And so Stessa has support for both, and she's been able to put that mixed portfolio together, and she can actually see all of her numbers rolled up into one report. And so I just think of like trying to set that up in a generic accounting program is pretty complicated. So that's the quick pitch. Should we jump into a little bit of a live demo here?
Definitely. It'd be great to do a live demo. While you're getting that set up, I definitely like the idea of having everything automated. One quick question that I have is, so I used Mint way back when Mint first came out, mint.com. And I just found that it was not, I wouldn't say not doing what it was doing what it's supposed to. I just, as not being a numbers person at all, it was a little too complicated. Trying to make sure everything balanced out, like everything got selected right, like from my account and got placed in the right spot. It was just so irritating. I just didn't want to put the time into it. So tell me about how we actually put in, well, as you're getting the demo, because we're going to walk through that. I'm going to ask basically the question, like with expenses, how do we make sure those expenses are in there and their income? So let's go ahead and do the demo.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, maybe let me share screen here. So I'm going to jump to transactions here, and I'll tackle your question first. So, and this really is kind of the heart of Stessa, where all the data comes in. So, this is a demo account. We do have a bank connected here, but typically in a user's account, they might have 3 or 4 banks connected, or maybe a lender as well, and a property manager. All that data, all those transactions come into this interface here. And you would see many of them categorized automatically by our system based on the data that the bank is sending through or your own patterns of working with this data in the past. So we have some machine learning that picks up on your trends and tries to do as much as possible for you. Each of these transactions then that don't get categorized, you would end up with this needs review tab here. And I don't have any in needs review right now. But if you did have some that are uncategorized, they've got a pink background. It's very obvious. It says choose category. And you basically hit this drop down. And then here's all your real estate specific categories preloaded, ready to go. So you don't have to set this up. We actually don't even allow you to add custom categories. So that tends to weird out the reporting if everyone has different categories, calling them different names. So we try to, part of our philosophy is that our software is opinionated, right? And it tries to show you where to go. And yes, we miss a few things along the edges sometimes, but over time we collect the feedback and we'll add a new category when we need to. But there's basically buckets for everything. So,
well, what's interesting too about this is it's not necessarily a budgeting app. Like Mint is more budgeting, which helps a lot with budgeting. But I know my accountant and most accountants, they basically have certain set things like how much is taxes this year, how much were utilities, how much was, legal fees, how much were repairs, how much were maintenance. And that's literally the same thing. Like, they don't need to break it out any much more so, unless they have something else that's a little more nuanced. And so if it's really standardized, which that's what tax forms are, they're very standardized, it's very well a good way to go instead of trying to change everything and recreate the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of sub buckets. There's over 100 subcategories. So on the operational side, you really can drill things down and track it that way to know what's going on. And then you can actually just roll everything up to the top level categories when you share it with your CPA, because that's really all they need to know, right? And then those categories generally map really well to Schedule E, which is what most people are using. You can map them to the partnership form as well, 1065 if you need to. But Schedule E is really what we kind of organize our bookkeeping around. And so, a lot of this data will get categorized automatically. Mortgage transactions, when they come in, we've got a nice split function up here. So like, let's say this is a mortgage transaction, you can hit split here. And let's say you've got principal, interest, and escrow, right? Every month. You can add a split here. You can say, okay, this one's my interest payment. I'm going to put my principal here. And then you can do your escrows down here. So it's really nice to track that throughout the year instead of just waiting for that statement at the end of the year that tells you how much you paid in interest. And you can kind of, keep your lender honest about the escrows and know what's going on there. And then some banks even send that transaction through for us already split. So a lot of lenders are working on that, which is, even more helpful.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and then this view, you can obviously sort by portfolio, by property. So it's really easy to figure out if you're missing data somewhere, or, let's say maybe a bank connection went out of sync. It's easy to pick up on those sorts of things, go in and fix it, and then you're back in business.
And so we invest in all over the country. I invest in 6 or 7 different cities. Would you break it up by city, or is it like when you say portfolio, is that what that means, or how does that work out?
Yeah, you totally can. It's up to you. It's very flexible. So I'll actually jump over and show you how that works on the properties page here. So this is, essentially a sort of schedule of real estate owned that breaks down all of your assets that are on Stessa. So to set up, you've got a second portfolio here, you can just add a property, and then it's really easy to drag and drop these around between portfolios. You can reorganize things as you need to. And it's really up to you how you want to organize it. Some people have different properties in different LLCs, so that's one way to do it. You do it based on the partners that you want to share access with, or you can do it geographically. Geographically makes a lot of sense if that's how you kind of think about your investing, right? If you've got higher yield stuff in the upper Midwest or something, then you've got things that are, on the West Coast that are more about appreciation. You might want to look at it that way, right? So it's really up to you. And then, this page has a lot of data here. So you put in your acquisition pricing here, all these market values. You can run quick little models based on cap rate or GRM to do it yourself, or you can have us ping Zillow, which works great for single family homes. And then you can have an updated Zestimate in there as your market value. Obviously, we're tracking loan balances automatically. So this gives you your equity in each property. And then think of this number in the demo accounts, $277,000. That's kind of like your net worth for that portfolio at the moment based on the equity you've accumulated. So it's a nice way to get a quick snapshot of what's going on. And this is also something you can print and share with lenders if you're doing a refinance or whatever you need it for. So, okay, so all that transactions data rolls up to the dashboard. And this is where you see a lot of your key metrics. So this rolls up your total portfolio value across all those properties. You've got a quick appreciation, real simple appreciation based on market values versus acquisition prices. When you've got a big portfolio, occupancy can be difficult to calculate, so we do that for you here. And then this is a pro forma income number. So this is like a target number in a best case scenario each month. We roll up all your debt, and then you get some nice portfolio level metrics here around cash flow. You have a dashboard like this for any specific property as well. So you can drill down and see what's going on at the individual property level at any time. This net cash flow by month chart is pretty important. This gives you, when you hover over, you get a detailed breakdown of the numbers and shows you, really how you're doing at a net cash flow basis. So like bottom line, if you're doing capital projects every month, some investors kind of gloss over that as not a real expense, right? But some acquisitions you end up doing capital all the time, and it's a real impact on your bottom line. So I find this to be eye-opening for a lot of investors between what you think is going to happen and the way you underwrite your pro forma, and then a year later, okay, where am I versus that business plan? Are things working the way I thought they would? And this, if you have good data coming in, this chart doesn't lie. And then there's a few other metrics down here. There's cash on cash return, which is a good one in the beginning. It's not as important over time as you get deeper into an investment, but it's a good early indicator as to how things are going in terms of what's actually ending up in your bank account, right? As a function of how much you have invested. And then, these kind of break down, these change based on whether you're looking at a property or portfolio. And you can see your loan to value, which obviously goes down as you make principal payments and then bounces around based on your valuations. So you start to see how all those inputs kind of work together on a lot of these metrics. That's the dashboard. Let's see, we did properties, leases and tenants. This is where you keep track of your rent roll. So all your tenant data goes in here. You can put their email addresses in, phone numbers, rent, their deposits you can track, move in, move out dates. We do little notices and flags when things have expired or you've got an expiration coming up. So it's a good way to kind of stay on top of things. And then this is a newer feature we've added where we'll highlight their most recent payment. So it helps you kind of track, okay, when was that payment? Are they getting behind? Are they on time? And we're developing some more features here. We're spending a lot of time in the fourth quarter this year working on beefing up ways that you can keep on top of outstanding balances, who owes what, how many times they've been late, and some of the historical issues around rent rolls and tenants.
I would definitely like that. That's great.
Yeah, it's one of the things we're getting, feedback and requests for, that we further kind of develop that part of the software. So we're very focused on that. And ongoing feedback from users is super important to us. We've got a big community forum. One of the most popular threads is called the wish list. And so there are, we're tracking a number of different issues there, and people can vote on them, and they sort of bubble up to the top of the list. So that's a big part of our design process. Document storage, which I mentioned briefly. So this is like a mini Dropbox inside of your Stessa account. You can upload all kinds of documents here: settlement statements, leases, mortgages, anything you need for reference. And then, similar to transactions, you can categorize them. So you can keep things in different buckets so that they're easy to find when you need them. And everything's assigned by property or portfolio. So it keeps things easy to track.
If you want to find all the documents for one property, how do you do that?
Yeah, so you would go up here to the top and click, let's say, okay, let's look just for 123 Easy Street. There they are. So I don't think I have any set up for the other property. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just did.
Yeah.
I was looking at the lower section. I didn't see how to actually find the specific property, but that works out great.
Yeah, it's funny. This same question came up in another demo I was doing recently, where someone had been using Stessa for a while, and they just never saw this like top, because it's more of a global filter setting. And then you can also go down by unit. So maybe we need to put a little hint or something to point people up top.
Mm-hmm. So I'm definitely interested in reports, because that's definitely something that is where really the power comes to us. Obviously the dashboard is great too, but also having the report is really going to be helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where all that data on your transaction page comes together and actually makes sense, right? In a legible form where you can see what's going on. One of the great things about it is that it's now in browser. So like you get the numbers right away, right in front of you. If you want them in Excel or PDF, you can export them that way and then do whatever you need to do with them. There's also a great way to kind of error check yourself, right? Like you can kind of look through, oh, why is there no, why is rent lower in this month versus the others? Oh, I had a tenant who was having trouble because of the pandemic, right? Job loss. Same thing with utilities. You can see why are things, if things are bouncing around, why is that? Is it seasonal? We've got a number of reports here, and you can run them all based on property or portfolio. You can set your own custom time frame if you like. You can see them by month. So this is by month where you've got all the months across the top. You can see all your property addresses across the top if you want a portfolio view that way instead. And then when you click on by subcategory, you get that deeper level, the next level of category buckets. So it's an even better way to really drill in and see what's going on what's happening in gardening and landscaping specifically, right? Other reports, the net cash flow is kind of the most comprehensive one. There's an income statement which focuses more on what's operationally happening at the property, whereas net cash flow also has your debt and financing issues, plus CapEx. There's a balance sheet, which brings in your bank account balances and security deposits, escrow amounts if you're tracking those separately, and all that outputs on a single page here. So this is a nice way to get a quick overview of, okay, where do I stand right now? What's my total equity once you add up all these accounts that are in different places that are changing all the time and you may not have your eyes on.
How do we connect our bank?
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll jump over to data sources real quickly. That all happens on the data sources page. We've got an interface here. You can connect your property manager here. If they're using Propertyware or Appfolio, you can set that up. You just enter your credentials and then we go ping the data.
That's pretty cool. So I have one of my property managers uses, I want to say Appfolio, but I'm not 100%. And so I have my own login. I could use my login to get into that. Is that correct?
Yes, it's the owner portal login. So it's
okay,
the monthly PDF owner statement is the one that we integrate with. And it's
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, similar program with Propertyware. And we're working on building out some other integrations as well. For banks and lenders, you do that here with financial account. And we use Yodlee, who's one of the biggest third-party bank data and security providers. So they do these secure links into literally thousands of banks. So obviously the big ones are supported, but I'm always surprised how many small local banks are actually in the system. So hundreds of banks that I've never heard of. So that all happens here. You key in your credentials, it connects. So very similar to Mint and Personal Capital. It's actually the same backend technology. So I'll bounce back here. You can also upload data files. So some banks only give you 30 to 90 days of historical data. And if you want to go back to like the first of the year, you would get a CSV or QUIF file from them, and then you can upload that directly to Stessa to get yourself caught up.
So another question I got to jump to. So if I have a receipt where I physically have a receipt that I want to, record, can we take a picture of it so we have it and then we can throw away the receipt, or what's the process for doing that?
Yeah, so the best way to do that is definitely with the mobile app. We have some receipt scanning technology on there. You get kind of a green box that goes around the receipt. You take a picture and then it goes through a back-end machine learning process. And typically we'll be able to pull the vendor name, the date, the amount, and often categorize it as well. And then it basically shows up on your transactions page here as a new item. And if there's already, let's say like it was, you paid it, it was a direct deposit or direct payment from a bank account, so it's already in the system. Oftentimes we'll be able to match that up, and then we'll just attach the receipt to the existing transaction so that you have a record of it. up to you whether you want to throw it away or just, stash it somewhere in case you need it. But, you have a digital copy, and that's good enough.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so things like this, like actually, here's one of my statements for one of my properties. So
Yeah.
if I had something like this and it's not actually able to connect in there, could I take a picture of this too?
You absolutely could. I do a lot of full page receipts. So you might have like a contract for a contractor or something.
Yep.
You could do that. I get in Hawaii, like my, my electric bill is like a full page. I just take a snapshot of that. And then when it gets paid out of my bank account on direct payment, it all gets matched up. And then I've got a copy of the receipt in case I need to go in and see what exactly was going on.
That's great. So is there anything else in here that, like, I see there's a resources tab. Is there anything else we might have missed?
Yeah, resources where we put guides. This is where we also do, you can pop in here for a quick mortgage quote on a refinance from one of our partners. And then there's some guides we release from time to time. We've got a big list of COVID-19 resources that are good to check out.
What's the rent estimates? That's definitely, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so this is our market rent report product. And so this is something you can purchase one-off. And so we preload all your addresses in here. You can pick a property, and then you can pick one of your units, because we'll do it. You'll get a different report based on whether you want the market report for studios or 3-bedroom houses, right? And then it generates a report that looks something like this sample that lays out, okay, what's on the market, what are average asking rents. So this can be really helpful when you're trying to figure out, what to put your listing at, how long it might take you to lease it up, and just get a feel for the market overall. So it's actually a pretty detailed report. It gives you like local comps and a bunch of aggregate data from across the market, and then historical trends as well, so you can see how rents have been doing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's much more so than Zillow. I'm not a big fan of using Zillow for rent. It's just a quick gauge to see what you might be able to get, but then you got to do a lot more research to make sure you know what you're getting the right number.
Yeah. Even something like this, a lot of detail, but you obviously want to pair it with what you know about your unit and how it compares to the market, whether you've got, some premium features or kitchen upgrade. And then also, just I look at Craigslist and see, okay, what are people asking, and
exactly.
how long the listings hanging around?
I love talking to my property managers. Like, more than likely the property managers I hire, they have a few properties in the area, and they say, well, I have a property 3 blocks away getting this much. It's the exact same type of house. I'm like, perfect. That's a great comparable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's their job, to know the local market,
Yep.
right? And you've got other clients who are doing the same things you are and have the same challenges, for sure.
Very cool.
So yeah, the last thing I'll touch on is alerts and insights, which is kind of a new thing we launched. There aren't actually any in this demo account right now, but this is where things like rent expirations, other interesting alerts, sometimes news related to rental property owners will kind of bubble things up there. If you've got a broken bank connection or some missing data that we've picked up on, that all happens there. So that's where we try to be intelligent and put the right things in front of you that you need to focus on next.
And I love it. I think it's great. And I am absolutely going to give this, I'm going to use this because like I said, my Excel sheet, I use that, but it's only because I just never wanted to try this. But now we walk through this is something that I definitely need to use, because they're so in the reporting and everything is going to be so great, as well as connecting everything, hopefully make things so much more automated. And what really bought me in was when I saw I can have my property manager or my owner statement logging into my property manager's connections. Like that's awesome. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No one wants to do double work, right? And your property manager's doing all that work. So we absolutely want to get the advantage of that.
That's terrific. Man, this is great. So I am absolutely going to be using this, and for everybody listening and watching, you definitely need to use this as well. So is there anything else, Devin, before we sign off?
No, I'll just say, it only takes 5 minutes to set up your first property, and you get a pretty good feel for it that way. So it's stessa.com, stessa.com. And, my team is ready to answer questions and help people onboard with whatever they need. So it's really easy to reach out to us. If you can still see my screen, there's this little blue circle in the lower right that opens up a window, goes right to my team. So real easy to get help if you do get stuck anywhere along the way. I think that's it. Thanks for having me, Dustin.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Devin. It was great having you on. All right, everybody. We'll see you.
Cheers.